Thanks, Goose. The 2011 Mortal Kombat was the first game to get banned in Australia that we actually wanted to play, because even though the gore was high, so were the review scores.
2 years on, and with the new R18 rating, Australians can finally compete with the Complete Edition.
The tournament begins.
Which is the original game plus all the downloadable content. And we can see why it was originally restricted. This is one of the goriest and most brutal games we've ever reviewed. You have been warned, things will get messy. Fight!
But is it really necessary?
A challenge!
The Mortal Kombat games were my all-time favorite games as a kid, Hex. And the moment I picked up the controller, that excruciating 2-year wait to finally play this game on 1080p on my TV, it was worth it. Well, it was kind of worth it because I feel like everyone has moved on, but MK9 is still a great game.
Yeah, it's a top-notch fighter, and coming off the back of Injustice from the same developer only a few weeks ago, it's a pretty good time to be an Australian fighter fan. It has a campaign too, which is a retelling of MK1 to MK3. Earthrealm is under threat from being absorbed by Outworld. The only way to stop Shao Kahn and his minions from taking over is a tournament of Earth's top fighters.
If we lose this time, Shao Kahn will conquer all. Dun dun dun!
The MK characters have always had a little bit of story with them, but it's usually been told through text boxes, so it's nice to have those characters a bit more fleshed out now.
Yeah, and there are some interesting ideas in this campaign too, if a little cheesy at times, most of the time. Johnny Cage's stuff is especially cheesy, but I still enjoyed it.
Hey, beautiful. Johnny Cage.
Good for you.
And I liked the whole Cyrax and Sector's transformation from human to machine.
You have disobeyed the directive.
Sector? You're a cyborg.
And for some reason, Kano is now an Aussie.
Pretty boy ain't gonna save you this time. Throw that on your Barbie, shrimp.
Sonya's boobs are ridiculous though. Apparently this is Special Forces standard military issue clothing.
Your actual military?
Special Forces.
Get out. Raiden called in the cavalry.
Raiden? No idea who you're talking about.
Yeah, Jade and Katana aren't much better.
Enough of this.
There are a few booby hangovers from old MK that just haven't changed a bit.
Shield your eyes.
What?
And you have to agree that the campaign is pretty bad, Bajo. Most of the stories aren't strong. I mean, there's quite a few fights for no reason.
No, you will not be the one to challenge Shang Tsung.
You want some too? Fine by me.
And I love the voice acting is below par.
The coming days, each of you will fight. You're good. Show me more. You have disgraced no one. I hope we meet again, under different circumstances.
Scorpion's all about revenge and telling everyone he's out for revenge all the time.
I will honor the memory of my fallen Sub-Zero deserves death. You will suffer as they did. I will have his hand. I will have my revenge. I will have my revenge.
Also, there seem to be very few rules to this tournament. Basically, if Shang Tsung pops up behind you and says, "Oh, a challenger," the fight's on.
A challenge!
Fight!
Also, every now and again you're thrown up against 2 enemies, which is a pretty big difficulty spike.
I don't mind those so much because it's kind of like a boss fight where you really have to learn their moves to try and beat them. I think as far as fighting campaigns go, it's not actually that bad, although Shao Kahn can get stuffed. What a cheap boss! Kahn!
What? The tournament will begin!
Goro, however, is beautiful.
I will give you a warrior's death.
And sitting down to play this Hex, within minutes I was just hit with this wave of familiarity and nostalgia because instinctively I know how to play this game. Jump, high kick, sweep, uppercut, block, special move. And right down to the timing, such as when you're on the ground you can start doing a special move combo as your character is still getting up. I just felt right at home, Hex.
And there's new strategy too with the super bar. Just like in Injustice, it lets you spend some on a breaker or a more powerful special move.
Scorpion wins.
You'd want to be pretty desperate to use it on a breaker though, only if it's really going to save your match. It's better to save it up and use it on the now famous super move X-ray attacks, which are more powerful and painful. Oh, I winced every time, Bajo. It's fun managing that super gauge though. If you miss a hit, it can make or break a match, and often they come down to the last sliver of health. which means it certainly feels like a well-balanced fighter.
Yeah, each character seems to have the perfect mix of weaknesses and strengths. And what a roster, all about fan service. Cabal with his devastating dash, Liu Kang and his crazy kicks, Kung Lao's Bond villain hat moves, Shiva and her patented Borat swimsuit return.
Yeah, characters like Raiden, Scorpion, and Sub-Zero all haven't been messed with too much, which is great, especially Sub-Zero, who is bare bones but powerful. In fact, everyone feels just like they used to in the older games, with just a few tweaks. The PS3 version also comes with Kratos, which, I have to be honest, I didn't really like him that much as a fighter.
Yeah, I have seen him used well, and you'd think he would be perfect for a fighting game like this, but I felt like they kind of watered him down a bit just to fit in with MK. I did like how one of his special moves has a QuickTime event within it, though. I thought that was quite neat. And the locations, Hex. Just like the old days, but shinier. From the music to the backgrounds to the Mr. Toasty guy, they're all in there in beautiful HD. This game just feels part homage to those original 3 games, but also a brand new serious fighter in its own right.
There's also a lot of crazy modes like Test Your Luck and 4-player tag matches, which is really fun on the couch with friends. Let's talk about X-rays and the famous fatalities for a bit. So now's the time to take a breather if you're squeamish. Obviously, this isn't a game for everyone, and these 2 features will make many switch off, I think. The X-ray moves are brutal. Seeing bone and guts crushed is full on, but they have purpose in the fights. It is painful to watch your character get hurt so much, but you're also feeling that pain because you failed to block that special move, so it's a sort of punishment.
Strategically and conceptually, the X-rays work really well, I think. The fatalities are a whole other ballpark. You go into a Mortal Kombat game knowing it's going to have these fatalities. It is the thing that set this game apart from all of the others back in the day.
Yeah, and you know, not a lot can shock me in video games nowadays. I feel like I've seen it all, but when we saw the fatalities in this most recent MK, I think we were both just open-mouthed at the sheer, you know, blood and sinew
Bits
and
of
the
skin in
bones,
between the bones being
and just
stretched.
body parts being ripped off. In our 8:30 time slot, there's not a lot that we can show, but we do want to discuss this in detail. So we've prepared a diorama to demonstrate one of Baraka's more brutal finishes, who in this instance will be played by Wolverine.
Baraka, Sector. Round 1, fight.
So first, Baraka jabs his blade arm thing into his opponent like so, and then lifts him up like this.
And he spins him around like a helicopter.
Spins him around like a helicopter.
And then he lifts this other arm so that he chops all the individual pieces of his body off one by one, leaving just a bleeding torso, which he then throws on the ground. And there's lots of sort of blood around the place. It's quite violent.
Yeah. And that's how it goes.
Actually, guys, we can show it.
Oh, we can show it. You've been warned.
Finish him.
Tomato sauce and figurines aside, this game does pose some interesting conundrums with regards to these fatalities, because on the one hand, I often found myself shocked and appalled at what I'm seeing, thinking this shouldn't be in a video game, and then on the other hand, I found many of them quite humorous, and that made me feel guilty, but then I didn't want to look away.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, it's that Tarantino vibe of like the gore and the violence being so over the top that it fits into that kind of category. But it was the ones where there were bodies just being ripped and torn apart that I think it just took things a little bit too far. And for me, you know, seeing the losing character screaming in agony is just, ugh.
The fatalities I found most affecting were actually Melina's, because after she does the fatality, she kind of does this sexy dance in all of the blood. And that just was weird.
Probably the worst one for me was this Kung Lao fatality, which honestly, when I saw it coming, I had to look away. I mean, I don't need to see that. And does that make me super lame that I don't think seeing a person buzzsawed in half from the crotch upwards while they scream in agony is a video game necessity?
Yeah, that one is very full on, but at least it uses something that Kung Lao was known for, his spinning hat. there's a very fine line, I think, and I think this game makes a point of crossing it many times and pushing those boundaries, and that's not always a bad thing. Creative industry should push boundaries, but I think they needed to think more creatively about these fatalities, because I felt like half of them were just gore for the sake of it, and that fits into that kind of hostile film vibe, which I do not like, but the other half were more suited to the character, such as Freddy Krueger's fatality, which really suits him. He leaps up, he pulls them down into hell, it makes sense.
Yeah, some of the ones that I thought hit the right mark were ones like Shiva, for example. This one's still gory, but she beats you to death with your own arms and then uses them to clap at the end. I mean, it's less affecting and it plays to that ridiculousness and the humor. You know, we were so frustrated when this game got denied release in our country, but now that it's here, I'm especially glad that it got released under the correct rating, because there is some seriously sickening stuff in this game that I think even we weren't prepared for.
Yeah, and I think it's worth analysing and talking about whenever we get a game like this, because this is a new kind of level of violence that we've never seen before.
Yeah, especially at this graphical level as well.
And we've got a new generation starting too, and it's all going to be even more detailed. Yeah. But we should wrap this up. If I were to criticise anything else, I think it would be the presentation of the game in general. There's no way to skip cutscenes or chapter select in the campaign, which is unusual, and in general the menus are laggy due to online checks, even just to press start. And while we're at it, I've noticed this with Injustice as well, but both of these games have so much trouble connecting to other people online.
Fight!
Sometimes 6 or 7 dropouts in a row and then one good game and then followed by more dropouts. It's not good enough. I play these games to go online and fight people who are better than me to get better myself, and it doesn't make it easy for you. But all in all, 2 years on, this doesn't feel like a game that is 2 years old. It holds up well, and I'm glad Mortal Kombat has returned to that 2D strict fighting plane. So I'm giving it 8.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
8 out of 10 from me.
Scorpion wins. Fatality.